Yeah, I did.
No, you have to.
Yep. It's 7:05. On this meeting of the Middlebury Development Review Board, September 11th, 2017. Briefly go over the two items on the agenda first. The first one is an application by Eric Heider for a final subdivision review of a proposal for a two-lot subdivision. The property is located at 494 South Munger Street in the ARR zoning district. The second one, an application by Charles H. Roy for a preliminary review of a proposal for a two-lot subdivision. The property is located at 651 Blake Roy Road in the Forest zoning district. Are there any communications from the public on any items not on the agenda tonight? Hearing none. Approval of minutes of 8:28. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second that.
Are there any changes, questions, comments? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
One abstention because I came late.
Two abstentions, because I wasn't here. Okay. First item on the business agenda, an application by Eric Heider for a final subdivision review of a proposal for a two-lot subdivision. The property is located at 494 South Munger Street in the ARR zoning district. If you'd like to come up, and I'll administer the oath. For applicants and interested persons, I affirm that the evidence and information I am giving in this proceeding is true and accurate to the best of my knowledge and belief. Okay. Okay. We've had our preliminary meeting, and this is the final one. And would you like to briefly explain the project?
Sure. Jason Barnett, Adjournment. Site plan, which shows the proposed building envelope, development area, with regards to a proposed lot 2 being a 2.13 acre parcel, to be improved with a 3-bedroom single-family home, with a detached garage that will have a convenience bathroom. The wastewater and water systems are sized to accommodate both. We do have the state water and wastewater permit for the property, which was issued, I believe, 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks ago now. It's on file with the town, should have received a copy also. You're not getting, the site plan was shown has the grading, the curtain drain behind the mound, and also the proposed access to the property, which a curb cut permit access approval has been granted, I believe, right, Eric? Yeah. And I don't know if Jen has the ability to flip up the plat. Here's the survey plat. That depicts the building envelope. Again, the entire parcel has not been surveyed, which is not required. The acreage is estimated based on the tax maps and the orthos. Currently, this parcel is undeveloped. Mr. Heider's looking to construct, like I said, again, a single-family home on a 2.13 acre parcel. Relatively straightforward project, in compliance with the state water and wastewater regs. Access has been granted. No significant natural features that would be impacted by the project. Close to the road, short drive, really works out well.
Okay, and is there an access, to the, portion, the larger portion, larger acreage?
There is. There's a deeded right-of-way that crosses land sub in a 10-acre lot that was created prior to this subdivision.
Okay.
So there is deeded access to that remaining land.
And the sewer will be off-site, so there'll be, some documentation at some point.
There'll be an easement drafted, once everything's set and the Mylar is recorded, Eric will take over the Mylar, have a deed drafted. It's on and off site, it actually straddles the boundary line.
Gotcha. Okay. Any questions or comments from the board at this time?
I'd like to ask
Yeah.
Mr. Heiter, just, although it's not required for approval, what your thoughts were about leaving some of the brush along the edge of the lot with Munger Road.
Yep, my plan is not to disturb. Right now, there's quite a few young maple trees between the road and the proposed house site, and I want to leave those. Trees that I will be taking down will be a certain number of the white pine that are gonna be within falling distance of the house. Obviously, I don't wanna build a brand new house and have a tree come down on it, so, those trees will be cut and everything else is gonna stay.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Gary?
Is it still in the current use program?
Yes.
What's gonna happen there?
Well, it's, all the paperwork is drafted up to pull it from the current use program. I didn't wanna go ahead with that until I made sure it was
Sure.
gonna fly here.
And the documentation for the right of way?
Yes.
Any other questions? Jen, any comments? Okay. Are there any comments from the public at this time? Okay. Is there a motion?
Sure, I'll make the motion. I move that the Middlebury Development Review Board, having reviewed the application submitted and having heard and duly considered the testimony presented at the public hearings of May 8th, 2017 and September 11th, 2017, approve this request for, it says preliminary, but final subdivision approval to create a 2-acre lot at 494 South Munger Street, subject to approval of the final plat by the DRB chair.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Discussion on the motion. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Shouldn't that remain preliminary subdivision until the final plots?
No, it is supposed to be final.
I understood, yeah, that's.
Yep,
Okay, great.
thanks, Gary.
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So,
Just grab that file. See ya, I'll give you a call. I'll just come up for the next one too.
Okay.
No, he was called away on business. He's out of state.
Second item on the business agenda, an application by Charles H. Roy for a preliminary review of a proposed for a 2-lot subdivision. The property is located at 651 Blake Roy Road in the Forest zoning district. Okay, we'd like to outline what the proposal is.
He's here with the site plan to get started, if you can, Jen.
Okay.
I'll just sort of stand up and give you the rundown. That's the survey plat, the preliminary.
Guess I just called it the wrong time. Bear with me.
That's okay.
This is page 1 of 2, so maybe.
There's two plats because it's in
Two towns.
two towns. It's in Salisbury, it's in Middlebury.
So maybe I've got it.
I can work off the
I don't know that I've scanned in your wastewater package.
Okay,
Sorry about that.
that's fine. I can run
I
through,
don't have it in the file, but
I can run through it with the plat. That's the Salisbury, there we go. So, existing undeveloped parcel, 50 some odd acres in size, 56 is apparently what we've come up with. That is located to the west of the Middlebury River.
Could you stand a little bit that way? You can get closer to it if you want, but.
Is that good?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay. It's gonna be easier for me to point everything out up here. As proposed, we realize it's in the Forest and Conservation District, the Forest District. And the minimum required is 25 acres. However, there is a 15-acre stipulation that the DRB can approve. Mr. Roy has been utilizing this land for agricultural purposes. It's currently an existing hayfield. The remainder of the property is wooded. It's primarily a sugar bush. It's been used as such for a number of years. He does have the ability, he has someone that's offered him money wants to buy the sugar bush portion of the property. They would like to keep that all as one contiguous forest land, roughly 34 acres remaining between Middlebury and Salisbury. There's already an access road which is outside of the flood hazard area, which was done by overlay using the GIS mapping provided by regional planning. The access would come from Salisbury to the parcel, the 19.7 acre parcel. The decision was made to keep it, over the 15 acres, but less than the 25, to make this a parcel that could continue to be used for agricultural purposes, organic farming. It's nice soil. He's been working the land for years. To have someone with one house out there, a potential small farm, to keep all the open land by itself, all the sugar bush as part of its own property, with the remaining 34 acres. That was sort of the goal of the project. We could obviously make things, the land is there, we could make a 25-acre parcel if we had to, but it would sort of disrupt the sugar bush, the wooded area. So that's really the purpose. The intent was to create so that it would have two separate agricultural purposes, but still have the ability to have one house. There is an easement for the wastewater system, which does go down on Lot 2. But we really wanted to keep everything and set the final subdivision line so that all the open land was by itself. And the rest of the land is actually part of a natural subdivision, which is about 15.5 acres, and that's over on the easterly side of the Middlebury River. So that's already existing. Mr. Roy is continuing to keep that. That will continue to be used for agriculture the way it is now, as will the other remaining lands, the new lots that are created.
So there's currently a house and a trailer on the property on the east side of the road.
On the easterly side of the road, correct. Correct. This is actually considered, if you look at the Middlebury tax maps, there's an A and a B. This is considered a separate parcel.
So when did they have a subdivision to put the trailer in there? When was that parcel subdivided to be able to allow a trailer?
The parcel on the east side of the road?
Yeah.
Actually, we're not dealing with the east side of the road in terms of this property. We're only dealing with the west side of the road. The drainage area with the Middlebury River drains 10 square miles or more, and then creates a separate parcel that's on the west side of the river. So it's a natural subdivision by the river.
So the river is where, okay,
Well, it's actually listed that way on the tax maps. They have parcels A and B, and if a drainage area drains 10 square miles or more, which the Middlebury River does at this point, that's considered a separate parcel. Mr. Roy doesn't actually own Middlebury River. That's navigable waters. That's owned by the state of Vermont. So there's actually,
but he owns land on either side of the river.
correct, but that's state of Vermont with the waters. So that's actually a separate, would be considered a separate parcel of land. So we're not actually
So that was,
dealing with the east side of the road.
But is that a part of the 19.7 acres that is looking to be subdivided?
Maybe you should show
Mm.
them the periphery of the lot.
I can, yeah, if you go to the next one, I think it'll have it. Has the overall. So here is the 19.7, whoops, okay. Here is the 19.7 acres. Actually, here is the Middlebury River as defined by the tax maps. That's overlaid. There's the 19.7 acres, lot 1. That's on the westerly side of Middlebury River. So that's not, this is an undeveloped parcel on the west side of the
That's the
river.
remaining part of the parcel, right?
The remaining land would be considered lot number 2.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then it's confusing because we do have lot 3, which is actually west of Blake Roy Road and east of Middlebury River. Technically, that's also part of his lands, but that would technically be considered a standalone parcel too, given the fact that it's a natural subdivision by the road.
Right.
But we're actually not dealing with,
That's a cornfield, isn't it?
that's the cornfield, correct.
The sugar bush is in lot 2, is that where?
Sugar Bush is entirely within lot 2, and it's obviously straddles that Middlebury-Salisbury line. And this is the access right in here. We did leave a right-of-way, and actually it's the, you know, the objective here, I think it's gonna be purchased by Goodrich Farms and may even be incorporated or added into their property. But they've actually been the ones that have been sugaring it for a number of years. So they wanted to keep all the woods contiguous.
Any other questions?
the access is from the approximately 8-foot wide road that's pre-existing.
Yes.
How does one get from the Blake Roy across the river to that access?
Salisbury.
Oh, there's a south of,
The
it's
next
south of the
page.
bridge.
South of the bridge, across the bridge. And
Go across the bridge, okay, along the edge of the river.
Yeah,
Okay.
goes right along the edge of the river.
Good.
It's an existing farm road. That's how they've been accessing that field for years. And we've actually, you know, have a meeting next week with the town of Salisbury because technically it's partially a trigger subdivision in both towns. We wanted to do it as a right-of-way over the road originally, and then it was decided that they wanted to actually own the road where it is.
So you have a pretty eccentric lot line division, which I understand is, the logic for that is that it follows the productive uses and natural features of the land, meaning the tree line.
Correct.
But you located the wastewater. Can you say why the wastewater is where it is, meaning on the lot that it's not serving and inside the trees where?
It's actually, it's up in the wooded portion, and there's already some sugar bush there
Right.
that, you know, they'll have to take down the sap lines, construct the wastewater system, put the sap lines back. This all through here is still sugar bush in that area. We talked about that with Charlie, and he wanted to try to basically just keep everything open with that lot number 1, and then keep everything wooded, and I believe that's what they had talked about with Goodrich when they were,
Oh, it's gonna be like it's gonna be a mounded system.
oh, yes,
Yeah.
yep.
Sorry, I don't know the geology.
And a wastewater application has been submitted to the state, and it's under review.
So the existing farm road will be upgraded to?
It will be upgraded,
to-
yep. I mean, you can drive a truck back there now.
Yeah.
We did it with our survey truck, but I wish the crew hadn't. You know, they'll put some gravel down, and it, you know, it won't take much to widen that out and make a good base to it.
Are the requirements for the width of that driveway in Salisbury's rules the same as in Middlebury's?
I believe they would be, and I'm not sure, I mean, the minimum width for a drive, typically we would design for 12 feet wide traveled road. That's pretty standard in most towns, but I can certainly ask them.
Well, I was wondering if they're different.
Would
Would you go with the larger one?
We would have to. We'd go the larger one. I mean, technically, if it were different, we could narrow or increase at the
Right.
town line, but by the time you go through all that trouble, you'd just make it the same width all the way through. And I'd be really shocked if we didn't have something that was 12 feet wide, single drive. That's pretty standard.
And the right-of-way also?
What's that?
The right-of-way would be,
Well, technically, there is no right-of-way. The property, and I can go back to the overall if Jen goes, but technically, that lot line follows the road down. They actually own the road. It's not a right-of-way.
okay.
Originally, we had it laid out as a right-of-way.
Yep.
We did put a right-of-way in back here to lot number 2. In all likelihood, Goodrich is gonna purchase, the necessity for that right-of-way is not gonna be
An issue.
an issue. So they're gonna add that land to their property.
So
And
what do
they'll,
they do? Give them an easement, Goodrich,
for,
the rest of the property that
They-
the
They won't need
Well,
one.
need
They won't need it. They'd
well, they
access
won't need it.
from
They
their
actually
property.
own below, they border to the south.
What is the definition of the special flood hazard area line that's delineated in purple? Is that a 100-year flood, or?
I believe that is a 100-year flood for the flood hazard, and I'm almost certain, we just did one up around Otter Creek in Virgins, and it was 100-year flood.
And it looks like most of the risk is within Salisbury's jurisdiction,
It is, yep. In terms of
in terms of whether you should move the driveway further west.
this area, yeah, it really climbs up. I mean, that's pretty much the road location. If they decide they want to get up a little bit further, they certainly have room to do so. But there is quite a rise to get up on that nice level shelf that sort of skirts around and goes back up into where the building envelope
I
is.
gave up after about 20 feet.
So none of the drawings in the packet show topo, right? It's like your submittal does, something we don't have.
My wastewater site plan does. I don't know if
Yeah, so that didn't make it in the packet.
didn't make it. I have it.
Is the grade of the drive under 10%?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's,
I figured because it was following the water, it would
it's
be.
just about flat.
I don't know.
Yeah.
If there's 2 or 3 contour rails all the way out through, I'd be really surprised.
Well, yeah, looking at where it was, I didn't know whether I wasn't seeing topos or whether there were none.
And actually, if we stopped with the LiDAR, we didn't go all the way, but it's almost, well, you can see it on this one to some extent.
It's on the east
It
side.
is in the LiDAR. But the driveway
Dave, I
basically
couldn't
follows
tell what
one
David
Yeah.
was saying.
It's an ISO line,
It is?
yeah.
all the way out.
That's what I was asking.
It's
Thanks.
actually not a bad, it's not a bad location for a road once it's, brought up and improved. Like I said, it was a little rough getting back there with the survey truck.
Okay, so what is this Oxbow Pond? Is that an old,
Yeah.
remains of an old stream bed that got
I'm
impounded?
not, is that
It says
on?
old stream bed
Must
on
be
it.
up on the further one.
It's actually
Oh,
private.
the Oxbow up in here?
On the Sealy,
There it is.
There we
Right at
go.
the top.
yeah.
Oh,
Right there,
okay.
right at the
Top
top.
middle.
Yep, that must be just a little Oxbow that eventually got silted in and cut off from the rest of the river. Yeah,
Most of that's on the Sealy property anyway.
correct. Yep, and we actually found the pin that was outside of. Yeah, you can see the old, where we shot in the old stream bed. Yeah,
So, forgive my, will you follow, on this, when this project, were this project to be built, you would follow the state low-risk sites
for the erosion control, yes.
for ENS? Yeah.
Yep, yeah, there'd be silt fence, I mean, that's pretty standard. Given the length of the driveway, we'd be over an acre of disturbance.
You will.
Yeah, I'm sure, I haven't, I'll say that I haven't gone through and done all the calculations, but I do enough where,
Yeah.
once you get into this length of a drive, then yeah, we'd be in the low risk category.
Where will the well be located?
Well will be located on, I can show you here. Down below the house, there's already an existing spring. It's not going to be used. Here is proposed house site. Well would be located downslope. You can see the
Okay.
tree line here.
Yep.
And there's an existing well that used to serve the farm. The water line goes under the river or through the river and then crosses the field, and it froze a number of times, so he ended up drilling a well over at the barn. So that spring is no longer being used, and that'll go away.
Now, is that still part of Charlie's land, the barn?
What's that?
The barn? Does that belong to Charlie?
The barn, the barn, yes,
Yeah.
the farmstead, that all belongs to Charlie, yes. And he's planning to continue to lease out the agricultural acreage. Yeah,
It's currently leased to the Knott Brothers.
it is, yep.
What do you use?
Yeah.
If you wanna see it. Cropper Road comes up here, here's the house and the well. would be
Yep.
here.
So none of the construction
This thing
footprint,
now,
either
but
for
that's the
septic
one
or
that's-
for house, is touching a wetland, as far as its map.
Correct. Yeah.
Are you going to delineate those?
I did talk to Jen
Well
about
site.
that. I mean, I've been out, and
Swale site.
if we're
Well.
close, but
There's no right of way.
the bulk of what I'm
On
anticipated being wetlands is up here. I mean, we're 300-400 feet away from.
Okay.
I don't feel that it's, I mean, wetlands are always a big issue. If it looks like it's gonna be a problem, we get a wetlands person out there. The road's already in. Basically, once they,
I'll show you what I was looking at, so they can see that. I thought these were a little closer than.
to the north. Yeah, I mean, you can see these kind of spurs, but that's more or less where the building envelope is.
Can you move your
I'm
body back, if you move back? See, there's the camera.
Oh, whoop, I'm sorry. Let me get to
I guess Jason's saying he's looking down in here,
we're over where the writing is, where the parcel label is.
not here, not up there.
Not up in that area. And what you're seeing is the wetlands and then the buffers around that, so you're actually
This is a separate
seeing
lot.
more than.
Yeah, no, I can see it.
All in the same. Well, it can be separated by
Separated by what?
the river. A different lot.
Different parcel. Yeah, I mean, you see it on the, and I'll try to stand out of the way, but you see A and B and C. They're already designated as 3 separate parcels.
A, B, C is on the east side of the road,
Correct. I mean, that's
where the barn and house and trailer are located.
correct. That's a separate parcel, even as recognized by the tax maps. That's a part of a natural subdivision.
I'd like to ask Jennifer for her professional opinion. I know different layers of state mapping have different reliability at different scales. At the scale we're talking about, is it your opinion that the wetlands mapping that we're looking at is, at the scale of 100, 200 feet is reliable, or?
Yeah, I can only speak to reliability, but when I put this staff memo together, I was doing it pretty hastily on Friday, and when Jason put it in perspective for me today, that it's like several hundred feet and not 30 or 50 feet, it
Yeah.
made me see it differently.
Yeah.
I know in some towns they have you actually add monumentations so that you don't mistakenly traipse into the wetland buffer, but if the construction is down here and not up there, I guess I've had a bit of a change of heart. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but.
Yeah, I mean,
And it seems to be protected by the shrub line too.
it's protected by the shrub line, and there's, a few, you can see there's a road that comes through and goes all the way around through the field, but, I mean,
Well, it's also in,
Certainly-
I can't really speak to the
certainly quite
accuracy,
a-
but it would have to be like not just over in here, it would have to be like actually on the other side of this tree line down in here.
yeah, I understand, and I've been in the applicant's shoes in this regard a couple times. The other category that this project fits into, to me, is the category where we are all quite worked up about wetlands when we do a development plan for it, and then it goes back into agricultural production and a cow or a tractor drives right into the thing.
Yeah, I watched a tractor mowing pussy willows today, and I was like, wow, that puts it in perspective for me. Or not pussy willows, cattails.
Yeah.
And I was like, they're just like going
Well,
through the mower. And
technically if they're going to continue to mow, they do have the right to continue.
That's right.
With the wetland regulations, you do have the right to continue the current use of that. When you stop and it comes back to a wetland, well, then you're not going back to mowing it. But as of right now, they've been haying and mowing that field at least once a year for quite a while.
Can I change tack a little? I understand why there's no reason, if Goodrich goes ahead and buys the remainder of the lot, the existing lot, why there's no reason for a right-of-way for that lot, but isn't there some concern that that lot ought to have a right-of-way pending?
We show it with a right-of-way. We have a right-of-way on the plan.
But
It's in Salisbury.
To the,
see, so this,
Through the remainder.
no, oh, this
To
green
lot
part?
two.
is it green?
It is.
Is that the green part?
That's,
Yeah.
Okay.
we do propose a right-of-way. If we were doing this as a boundary line adjustment with Goodrich, and they were actually incorporating that into their property, and it was part of,
Right.
you had a purchase and sales agreement, and it was all gonna go through, then we wouldn't need to include the right-of-way, but technically, we can't make a landlocked parcel, so we do have to show a right-of-way.
No, thank you, I just didn't, I saw that there, but I didn't see it, what it was necessarily.
Yeah, is there a call out here that says right away?
It's on the, it should be on the next one.
On the detail,
On the Middlebury one?
It's not on the Middlebury one,
It's in Salisbury.
it's in
But it-
Salisbury.
Oh, I see, yes, the sideline of proposed easement,
50-foot easement.
yeah.
Instead of going all the way up the driveway, make it the shortest.
Yeah,
but that's the pro forma easement that just kind of blasts right up the hill.
Yes.
It's not really how you'd want to access it. It's
It's-
solving the legal problem.
It's basically, it's putting it in there so that it's not a landlocked parcel. We can always change if we had to, but we're pretty certain that Goodrich is purchasing that property. I'm almost certain there's a contract.
Any other questions at this point? Jen,
Does-
go ahead.
I'm just not sure I grasped the whole right-of-way part of the conversation, but
um,
maybe I can review the tape.
well, it's that, the house's right-of-way will be up the existing road after it's been improved.
That's not gonna be
And
a
on the
right,
Salisbury map, there's this retained, this right-of-way here, which may or may not be needed.
Uh-huh.
It provides the right-of-way to the remainder of the lot, should the Goodriches back out of this purchase and not.
but the road up to the house is not a right-of-way.
No, that's actually part of the 19.7 acres.
Yeah, I think the issue is resolved. All of our concerns are resolved.
Do you feel like that conforms with section 705?
Which is,
Yeah, I think so.
Open that while we're here, Jason, so we can see it.
705. Nice to have it right side up.
Yeah, turn it over.
So we're plenty wide now.
Yeah,
Me-
it's full corridor, but it's 30 feet. Something that talks about that.
Well, the section B of that talks about grade, so the question is, for our fire access, are we evaluating the right-of-way? Because that's in Salisbury,
Right.
so I would say no.
So shouldn't,
It's not really, yeah.
We know that the access to the lot being subdivided as before us is, certainly, everything I see is that it's compliant. He's taken a bit of a risk that the secondary right, or the buyer is taking a risk that the right-of-way is navigable and legal when they, if they ever choose to build it.
Correct.
They're, people looking out for them in that matter would be Salisbury, I think.
I think there's a place in here that requires a right of way. 20 foot for an existing and 30 foot for a new, I just, you know.
But isn't what he's showing 50?
It is.
Yeah, but then he's showing nothing on the driveway all the way up to the new proposed house.
But that's not a that's not a right of way.
That's
No, that's
part of the
owned.
property.
That's
It's all
part of
one,
the-
it's all
part of
one
the
parcel.
problem.
It goes from the, right?
The right-of-way pertains to just Lot 2, just the access to Lot 2. And as David is describing, I mean, he's talking about the percent of grade along that area. I mean, we didn't survey it, we don't have topographic shots up through there. We basically looked at it and said, okay, more than likely Goodrich is gonna be buying this thing. They're gonna own the whole property. Right-of-way is not gonna be an issue, but we do have to show, we wanna show a right-of-way into Lot 2. Lot number 1 doesn't need a right-of-way, because that goes right out and actually touches Blake Roy Road and has road frontage, and the road's already there.
The river.
That one.
Where does Lot 2 touch the Blake Roy Road?
It doesn't,
Lot
It
2
doesn't.
does not.
doesn't.
It does not. This is the
Why they're
Goodrich,
giving a 50-foot right of way.
Goodrich Family Farm. This is the right-of-way that we have going up along that fence line.
Lot 1 has all the frontage.
Lot 1 has all the frontage, yes.
we don't have jurisdiction over that right away because it's in Salisbury.
Salisbury.
Technically, right.
But does Goodrich own the property south of Lot 1 and 2
Yes.
as well?
Here's Lot 1, here's Lot 2. All the lands that touch Lot 2 is Goodrich. They actually own most of the way around that parcel, I think.
Right.
That's why I called it a pro forma easement.
It's- I
It's
think-
Yeah.
clearly not the way the trucks are gonna go in and out of
Right.
that place. But it does solve the landlocked parcel.
Yeah,
issue.
and originally it wasn't, you know, they talked about just doing it as a boundary line adjustment too as well, which technically if they adjusted it and had that acreage, it's a little easier with showing a 50-foot access easement, transferring the lot to them. This boundary line can be configured, once they own it, they can configure it however they want to with them.
And then, of course, because this is in the forestry district, they have to approve the house itself by conditional use.
They meaning this board.
Yeah.
assume there's been other conditional uses in the forestry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Any other comments or questions at this time?
Was it, Dave, did you ask about the 100-year flood? Was that what you were saying?
Yeah, I was just asking if that,
Purple with a
if
dot.
that purple line was 100-year flood, and he wasn't sure, but he thinks it is.
I believe so. Most of the flood hazard areas are. But the one we just did one of the gens, and it was the same overlay, same thing for Madison. That was 100-year flood. So I gotta believe this one is also.
That's what the banks are interested in.
That's what the banks want to see, yes.
It's good news that that pond will get smaller in the 100-year flood. It's a heck of a pond.
Approximately where will the well be drilled? Do you have any idea at this
Yep.
point?
He showed, oh, I'm sorry, where's the?
Oh, right here.
Oh, it's on this one?
Yeah, yep.
Okay.
It'll be down slope of the house site. The house site is on the upper side of the field, the well would be on the
Okay.
lower side.
Yeah. Thank you.
So when
Right, okay.
he develops this lot, and then he can come in and put a sugar house, he doesn't need a permit for it because it's agriculture?
Well, actually, the 19.7 acre parcel is not gonna have any sugar bush left. The remaining land, lot 2, is gonna be the sugar bush.
Okay,
So, I mean, technically it's agriculture, they could put on a sugar house, but it's only open agricultural land at that point. I don't know why they'd go with a sugar
It's
house.
floodplain, so they couldn't even do that.
Well, outside of if they,
You probably got
There isn't yet.
probably got a sugar house already, or they sell it to somebody who has the sap.
well, the sap is actually, I mean, that's Goodrich and they process it somewhere else. But, yeah, the 19.7 acres, I don't envision that having a sugar house. That's gonna be open ag land. So it's outside of.
Jerry Canal's farm.
I assume Goodrich.
The change.
Nicer? Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Besides owns all that current sugar house, sugar works there, on top of the hill. This is in Salisbury.
Yes. Any other questions or comments at this time?
You ready for the vote?
Is there a motion?
I move that the Development Review Board, having reviewed the application submitted and having heard and duly considered the testimony presented at the public hearing of September 11th, 2017, approve this request for preliminary subdivision approval to create a 19.7 acre lot at 651 Blake Roy Road, subject to further conditional use and subdivision review, and the recommendations and sketch plan determination dated September 11th.
Is there a second to the motion?
So moved.
Is there any discussion on the motion?
I have not discussion on the motion so much as perhaps when you have your final plat, you can fix the conflict between what's lot 1 and what's
The
lot
number,
2.
yeah, we will do that.
Thank you.
Any other comments on the motion? Questions? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Do you have a question? No.
I guess, at what point do they have to go to Salisbury to talk
At
about?
what point? Next week?
Next week. Yep, we have a meeting.
So what are you gonna ask Salisbury DRB? What is it you're seeking down there?
Well, it's technically a subdivision. We're
But
creating
it's
parcel.
not in Salisbury, you're only dealing with the right-of-way, right, or only dealing with the access.
That would be the case if it were only a right-of-way in through Salisbury. If the parcel was subdivided entirely, the original goal was to make
Sorry, you want that map
15 or 16 acres in Middlebury, and they wanted to do it where it actually went down and touched Salisbury, so technically, no, it creates another parcel
In Salisbury.
in Salisbury.
Yeah.
So that triggers the subdivision approval there as well.
Anything
It would
else?
have been a little simpler with just a right-of-way. We had this discussion.
Any other questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. So when you come back with the final plan, Jen has suggested that you do the application for the house lot.
Okay.
Build, is that
For the conditional use.
for the conditional use? Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Timing is right, you can do them concurrently.
Okay, so we can do final and same thing.
Yep.
Final conditional use.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thanks.
The deliberative session is probably not gonna work.
We could make one up.
We will skip item 4 unless somebody wants to go into deliberative session for some reason. Hearing none, we'll go to other business, item 5. Is there other business, Donald?
I would just like to ask Jan what's the status? I keep seeing the Quonset hut getting larger and larger down on Route 7. The Trudeau,
He has a permit for that.
he does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's,
He has a permit for that structure. He doesn't have a permit for building a house in the back.
The house that's already in the ground, you mean?
Yeah, it's too bad that that foundation's there.
That's not a foundation, that's a house in the ground.
It's an underground house?
Yes,
That's
it's all
interesting.
finished.
Huh. Like a bunker, kind of?
No, it's a house, all
Okay.
finished.
Yeah.
does it have a roof on it?
You have to have a roof to be in the ground.
I don't know. Does it show from the road? Can you see it?
Bunker.
He's got a drone.
Is it rented?
Huh?
Is it rented?
It's a house, it's in the
Oh,
ground and it's a house.
So is that a, it sounds like that's a violation of,
You think?
oh,
I mentioned that when he was here the first time about the house that's completed in the backyard, in the ground, that he has limited, because of his discharge permit, he's gonna be coming back to, because I believe he bought the property on the other side of the road, and he wants to take that 300 gallons he claims got left over, and he's gonna bring it across the road and put it into his mound system.
well, I thought he was here to get, before the permit to build the house on the back portion.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
And it didn't work out. He needs to come back.
but we're saying he's already done it?
I don't see a house back there. I'll look.
You won't see it, it's in the ground, it's built into the ground.
Yeah, I've been in it.
Yes,
It's there.
it's a house.
Well, do
In
you
the
want to
gr-
do you want to close the hearing and then we can talk zoning violations all day
Yeah.
long off camera?
Right, yeah.
Okay, is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? No, all in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, meeting is adjourned.